I'm your host, Greg Ambrosius. I'm joined today by another special guest. He is NFFC Hall of Famer Billy Wazowski, the winner of last year's $200,000 grand prize in the Rotowire Online Championship. He's easily one of the best high-stakes players in the industry. Billy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Great to be on. I love this whole thing you're doing this year with these guys, and glad to be, like Chris said, I'm in the hot seat this week, so it'll be fun.
It's not a very hot seat.
I know
it's not. All I want to do, like I say, is introduce the fantasy community to our high stakes guys, have them figure out, how you came into the high stakes and that kind of stuff. So it's going to be great. In fact, you are a charter member of the NFFC. You joined us in that first year of 2004 when we lost all kinds of money, for sure, that first year, but it was great. But, for 18 years, you have been chasing a national title. You've won a lot of league titles. You came close to national titles many times by yourself, but it was just elusive until last year. How did it feel to win that Rotowire Online Championship title last year in one of the wildest finishes ever?
Well, it's like that's what we play these national contests. You're playing for the big money. And, like you said, I've had many teams that have got there. They look great on paper. They're going in. You look at the schedule. Oh, this is great. And then for whatever reason, somebody gets hurt. They don't produce, and it just doesn't come to fruition. But last year, everything fell into place, and it was crazy. To get that monkey off my back was nice. I mean, my next one is a prime time. I want to shoot for the prime time. That's what I'm going for this year.
There you go. Well, I got to ask you, was it a relief to finally win that national title? Was it just a great sense of accomplishment? Was it just unbelievable joy? All of the above? What was the feeling when you won that title?
All of the above. It's a culmination of everything that, you put into this over, again, that was been in 19 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 18 years. Sorry.
18
that
years.
Was 18 years. And, to chase that for so long and to finally get it was it's special. And, it was great. I mean, it was still one of those things I was really nervous about going into Monday night. I had Najee and Chris Boswell, and I was down 21 points. But, I've seen it before where people get hurt and everything else. And but once we got to about halftime, I think I was at 6. I think I needed 5 more points, and I felt pretty confident. I think Najee came out in the second half, like the second or third play, and ran at 30 yards. And I'm like, okay, I feel a lot better now. And then, I ended up winning, I think, by 25 points or 24 points. So it was going away. But what would have been really spectacular is if I was down by about 7. And I don't know if you remember the game, but Najee scored with under a minute to go.
Mm-hmm.
He went around the end and he scored a touchdown. That would have been really crazy.
Yeah, right. That just would have been more stress for you. That's all.
Yeah,
going
definitely.
That way.
Definitely.
Yeah. Talk about the outpouring of support from the community, because so many people were happy for you, right? I know they contacted you personally, but I mean, there were a lot of people who said, I'm so happy for Billy. He finally got one. How did that feel?
It felt great. I mean, the thing about that, it was almost like a perfect storm because we actually had a storm here in Richmond, which isn't a lot of snow, but they called school off around 3 or 4 o'clock that day for the next day. So
really?
It was great because whether I didn't get it or I did get it, it was going to be if I didn't get it, I'd be disappointed. I wouldn't be able to sleep. And if I did get it, I'd be so excited I couldn't sleep. But, people were texting me, calling me till 1:32 in the morning, and I didn't care. And we had a couple of days off of school, and it was fantastic. I did let it all sink in for a few days, and I kept getting some calls the next day. So, yeah, it was really special.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about that because it was one of the wildest finishes ever in NFFC history. You entered week 17, 27th overall in the Rotowire Online Championship, right? Then on Sunday in the 1 o'clock game, you got 102.9 points from the combination of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You had to stand up there, and Devontae Adams added 30.6 points, and suddenly it was like a 2-team battle between you and Danny Mueller, who also is a very, very good player.
Yes, he is.
Danny had a 20.95 point lead heading into Monday Night Football. Again, talk about that wild Sunday as you move up in the overall standings.
Yeah, when Burrow and Chase did their thing at 1 o'clock, it put me in the top 5 pretty confidently. I know I had Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb in the 4 o'clock games, and Brandon Cooks, I think he ended up with 15 or something, solid, decent game. CeeDee Lamb was not very good at all. But the key was going into the Sunday night game because it was Green Bay and might have been Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota. Yeah, it was Minnesota. Because Mike Santos had Justin Jefferson, but thankfully Cousins was out.
Yeah,
and Jefferson didn't do much. But the kicker for me is Danny had Rodgers and Adams. So what I needed is Rodgers just to funnel everything to Adams.
Yeah.
And it pretty much worked. And if you remember, they pulled Rodgers in the fourth quarter,
I
which
was there.
fantastic.
I was at the game.
I was like, thank God, because
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, this is in reach going into Monday night. But Monday was rough. It was you're a lot of pacing around the house and just thinking what'll happen. You can't control it, but you obviously want the best thing to happen.
No, it was unreal. Like I said, Danny had a 20.95 point lead. You had Najee Harris and Pittsburgh's kicker. He didn't have anybody. Najee ends up with 29.6. The Pittsburgh kicker scores 17.8, and you win going away, like you said, by 24 plus points. I mean, it was the greatest comeback, I think, in NFFC history. You scored 252.60 points. Now, again, this is what you live for, right? I mean, as a fantasy football player, you live for having that big game. It happened a couple of years ago with Josh Allen and Diggs, right? People won titles that way. You won it this way. It was unreal to finish on that Monday night and win it that way, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we score. I mean, my highest score ever in the NFFC is 262, and it was in a New York Super. It was in week 14, right before the playoffs. I almost caught Frank Momola in points in that league. He was so far ahead of me in that final week, and he's like, and he had to win on Sunday Night Football to beat me. But the next 3 weeks in the playoffs, I was terrible. Like my team just, they blew their load. They was done. But it was amazing because those are the weeks you want those 250s and 200s in that,
right.
Those 3 weeks. That's where you want to get them. So, and it happened. And I mean, I believe I started week 15 off with 137. So it's not like I was, I was way back. So it can be done. And I've told people before, it's like, I figured out the nuts, the team, the ultimate team, who it was. And I only had 5 of the 10 players. So you don't have to be perfect by any stretch, and you can still do it. So,
well, those 5 you had, though, were really, really big for sure. In fact, the stack of Burrow Chase was the winning combination. Like I said, the year before it was Allen and Diggs, and they went off on that Monday night game, and people won a lot of money. Are the stacks, and you got a Bengals jersey on, is this Burrow or Chase? It's Chase,
it's
right?
Chase. It's Chase.
Okay, yeah, definitely win. Hang on to that one for sure. Do you try to stack players like that? I mean, the Burrow Chase stack was certainly possible last year, right? I mean, Burrow was going to 5th round. Burrow was going to 10th round. Chase was going to 5th round. Do you try to stack quarterback wide receivers like that?
I don't push it. I don't go out of my way to do it to like take a player that's not as good as somebody else. This one just happened to work this way. Burrow was I think I got him in the 9th or 10th round last year.
Right.
So it wasn't like he's a premium pick. So no, I didn't try to do that. It just worked out that way. The big key to the team, in my opinion, was Mark Andrews, because Mark Andrews was considerably better than all the other tight ends. I think Dalton Schultz was like within 25 points, but he just blew the field away too for 3 weeks. So that was a big factor as well.
Yeah. You talk about that Monday night and how it all went right for you. I hate to bring up a bad memory, but I remember Glenn Lowy needed like 9 points, right? And I mean, that can happen where you need 9 points. And who was the wide receiver that got hurt for him?
AJ Green.
Yeah, AJ Green. I thought it was a Bengal. He gets hurt, gets nothing, and Glenn doesn't win the title in the prime time. And nobody remembers that, but that can happen on a Monday night, right?
That's why I was not counting any chickens. I was just like, look, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I remember I texted Mike Santos prior to it, and I was just like, you got to walk me through this, how I need to, handle this tonight. Because I was very nervous. I felt a funny just feeling, and then I had this calming right before the game started. It was nice, but still, you're nervous. You want things to happen. Every play, they're not handing off. Why are you handing off every play? But so.
I think they did pretty much hand off every time to Najee Harris that game, man. He got a lot of touches that game for sure.
He did.
Okay, so now this was your first solo title, but you also won the 2019 NFFC Postseason contest. That was a $125,000 grand prize. You split that team with Frank Momola, Jeff Clampett, 2 really good friends of yours. But talk about a wild finish in that one. Didn't you guys win when Greg Zuerlein missed that last-second field goal? The Rams were just trying to get within a touchdown. So Zuerlein goes out there, shanks it to the left, and you guys win $125,000. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what happened? The craziest thing about that is I was at a Super Bowl party, not at my house, obviously, and there was a commercial that came on, and somebody was telling a story, and they paused the game, and they never caught back up. So I was behind, and people were texting, and I'm like, did he miss? They're like, he missed it, or did he miss it? Or I'm like, oh my God. And, I'm sitting there and we had no clue. We were like, I think we were in 74th place going into that, but
Oh, wow.
the points can accumulate so fast.
Yeah.
And you remember that game, it was like 13-3, or it was,
Oh, yeah, it was a dud, definitely.
but it was Julian Edelman and Brandon Cooks were the two big guys on both sides. And those were our times fours. And that's how we ended up coming back in that game. So, but yeah, we needed Greg Zola. We always joke about Greg Zola. We're like, he's our favorite kicker ever because he missed that game.
I would think so, for sure. So kind of talk about sharing a team with two friends. Because, I mean, that's what the postseason contest is about, right? You guys got a bunch of teams together. You shared it. You ended up splitting 125,000. But, Frank and Jeff are close friends of yours. I'm sure you guys were calling each other throughout the whole tournament and stuff like that. How much fun is that, winning it with two buddies like that?
Oh, that makes it really special. That's what we said before. That's must-see TV right there. You get us on there, our conference call for 2 hours, arguing about this player and that player and why we should put this one and not this one. That's called strategy. But in the end, we make mistakes like everybody else, and we get some things right, and it just happened to work for us that year.
Hey, you guys ought to start up your own YouTube channel. That'd be a good one for people to watch, I think.
Setting
your lineups before the first kickoff with Billy, Frank, and Jeff. I think that would be a good one. Hey, kind of we talked about people contacting you after you won and stuff, but talk about the NFFC community, because you've been in this is 19 years now, and I know some of your best friends you've made through the NFFC and such like that, but it is a very unique community. This is what we try to tell people. It's not just winning high stakes and putting up big money. It's the community aspect, the live events aspect. You go to New York, you go to Las Vegas, everybody knows you. Talk about the community a little bit.
Oh, it's an amazing community. I mean, I've met people. At some point, I don't know if this is on the card or not. I'd love to tell my first year experience in the NFFC.
Yeah, that's the next question. So go ahead.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'll tell you. But going with what you were saying is, it's amazing. Yeah, some of my best friends I've met through Jeff and Frank and Sean Gundy and Mike Sanda and Michael Edelman, Chris Vaccaro, and all these people, Glenn Schroeder, Mark Cerebro. All these guys we talk and on a regular basis. So we talk football all the time, constantly. Yeah. And but seeing everybody every year is the fun part of it. The live drafts are just a blast. You guys do a great job. The everything about it is fantastic. Just, my biggest thing is I tell my wife, she's always like, what do you guys do? You guys go out and I'm like, no, we stand and look at draft boards after we're done and stare at them like a bunch of nerds, but it doesn't matter because we love it. And that's what we love doing. And it's just great. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. It's a community of like-minded people, obviously, but it's a lot of good guys. It's not, This isn't a lottery where you're scratching off cards and you're looking at cards, You're talking about strategy. You're going against this guy. You may not go against him the next draft, or you may go against him the next draft after just changing ideas and stuff. It is just a really, really unique community and a unique hobby right now. And I really enjoy it. Let's just throw up this one question that we got here.
Sure.
Number one, you would definitely pick JT, I assume, right? Not worried about week 14 bye or anything like that, especially in the NFFC.
I would not in the NFL. You don't have to worry about the week 14 bye.
Right.
So
but he's a slam dunk for you, isn't he?
Yes, I think he is. I don't get the one that often. I personally don't like the one ADS. I'm not a fan of it. But when I do get it, yes, I take JT.
See, that's 3RR. They're not a fan of it because they don't want to have 36 instead of 25. Otherwise, it's a no-doubter. All right, let's talk about your start in the NFFC. Again, 19 years ago, you went to New York City for our debut NFFC Classic. That's all we had back then. We had a $100,000 grand prize. First of all, how did you hear about the NFFC, and what got you to go to New York City and compete live?
So I actually got married in June of 2004. And I told my wife before we got married, I said, I'm pretty into fantasy football, but I was, kind of dabbling. I was playing in Fantasy Jungle, if you remember that. And just a bunch of other different things here and there. And it was a magazine. I can't remember what magazine it was. And I saw the ad and I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. And so I was like, hey, you care if I go to New York and I'm going to, draft. And what ended up happening is my wife on Saturday took a bus that was being chartered from Richmond up to Atlantic City. And then after the drafts, I drove to Atlantic City and we spent the night Saturday night. Anyway, I got into your 6 o'clock auction that evening, the Friday evening. And so I drove up Friday morning and, parked and everything and got in the Friday auction. And then I did the Classic on Saturday. So the auction, I walk in and it was Eddie Gillis was there and Mark Quitch and Jersey Paul.
Yep.
And I'm sitting right next to Glenn Schroeder. Literally, I don't know what, I think I was 7, he was 6 or what, it doesn't matter. And I think we just shook hands, introduced ourselves, but we didn't talk because nobody knew anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew anybody at the time.
Right.
But it was fun, great time. Walked back to the hotel, got sleep, came back the next day, and the Classic was awesome. Now the kicker with the Classic was I had the 14th pick. So and that wasn't, no 3R back then.
No, you were probably one of the ones that called me up and said, "You son of a bitch, I can't win from
at first
14."
I was thinking, I'm like, oh great, this is a scam, and I'm getting screwed. And so I get the 14th pick, and I remember my first two. I took Brian Westbrook and Fred Taylor. I always remember that. And,
very good.
And Matt Bailey was sitting at 3 across from me, and I always remember on Matt Bailey's he had a little thing in his ear. And he waited till like 3 seconds left to make every pick. Like he was like listening to something. He was looking up and he was like, and I don't know what he was doing, but it was crazy because I still remember everything about that event because I remember that Otis Anderson was there.
Yep.
And he spoke early, and then Adam Kaplan got up to speak, and people were asking Adam Kaplan questions about like players.
People got mad.
And Jersey Paul went bananas. He was like, "This is ridiculous. I've done all this research, and he's giving all these tips away." But the craziest thing about that draft, I ended up winning that draft, by the way. I won my first Classic ever. I had Antonio Gates.
14 spot. Nice.
Yeah. So, but the funniest thing about that draft was the guy who was at 12 took Dante Culpepper in the first round, and he took Mark Bulger in the 4th. And he was like, well, it's all right because you guys are going to be dying for quarterbacks, and I'm going to have 2 of them. And I'm like, that's just a wasted pick. And but you live and you learn. So, but it was just a great time. And of course I won. And then the hooks are in. Then I'm back the next year. I went to Chicago. Next 2 years I went to Chicago. And then I went back to New York. And then I think was it 2008 was the first year of the prime time?
I think 8 or 9. I think it might have been 9 actually.
Okay, maybe it was maybe it was 9 when I was in because I did a couple prime times. Then the rest is history. Now it's. The floodgates are open. So,
so how many years were you playing fantasy football locally and such like that, or was Jungle the first one that you got into?
My first draft was in 1988.
Yeah,
it was a 6-team draft. 6. We just graduated high school. Me and my buddies, and my buddy had this area. He has this like huge woods area. We got some tents, and we went out and got my one buddy's uncle got us a couple cases of beer, and we drafted teams, and it was great. I loved it. And back then you got to do everything manually through the USA Today, all the stats and everything else, and it was fantastic. And I was hooked then. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I played through college, and then I started playing like Gonzo Sports and Mr. Sports, and I was doing all kinds of little things that and I know Chris mentioned this too. When I was in college, I was asking people, anybody know of a draft this? So nothing much has changed since then. So.
But you had never done a 14 team, I bet you, before the Classic. I mean, when we did the 14 team, I know it was out there. Again, WCUFF was so big, we didn't really want to compete with them. And our baseball, I wanted to make it tough, so I made 15. Everybody loved the 15, so I'm like, 14 seems, but you probably never had done that before, I bet.
Never. And that was part of the allure of it for me, honestly, because I've done the 12s and I was successful, and I said, hey, this is cool. It's more strategy, and a Classic is a whole different animal in itself. I still love the Classic, and but it's a difficult league to win. When you win those, you do feel proud because it's a tough league. You walk out with a hole, everybody does, and you just hope you can fill it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that first one, because you did win the Classic League title your very first year. I mean, again, you got a 1 in 14 chance of that, for crying out loud. That is pretty amazing. You must have been thrilled by doing that, going into New York, not knowing anybody, and then kicking some ass that first year.
I was. And in fact, the second year I didn't do well. I didn't draft a good team in Chicago. And then I know my years 3 through 5, I either won or once got second each of those years. Because at one time I was the highest points total in the Classic, because when we had one team. For a while there, and but I could never close the deal. Like I said, I'd make it to the playoffs, and then it didn't fall through for me.
Yeah, was that at the Javits Center that first year? Where were we the first year?
First year we were at the Hilton.
Were we?
In New York, you were at the Hilton. Yeah, I just remember the ad too. I remember the picture of the Hilton in the ad. But yeah, we were at the Hilton that year. I didn't stay there, but that's where we were.
Yeah. Okay. I know I went to Javits for 1 year, but yeah, the ad had to be in our magazine, Fantasy Baseball or Fantasy Sports Magazine, because we didn't
Yeah.
advertise anywhere else. We didn't have any money, to be truthful. Talk about 3RR and KDS for me, because honestly, it was the first 3 years, and LaDainian Tomlinson dominated, I believe, 2005, 2006. And it was like, and again, people were actually calling me up after our draft spots. I was so excited to announce the draft spots because we were on the message boards, right? You didn't know who you were, what league you were in, what
Right.
pick you got, and we would put it on there. And Tom and I are hitting the refresh because so many people were on there. It actually froze up, and we're like, "Would you post New York Times too?" I'd holler to him. He's like, "I'm trying, I'm trying, I'm trying." And people were on there. Then when we got done, the phone would just start ringing. You son of a bitch! I can't win from 13. I was like, what? I felt like Santa Claus, and they were mad with the presents I gave them. And I'm not kidding you. People were calling us up, telling us like, I said to Tom, I'm done. I am not doing this anymore like this. This is ridiculous that people are mad. They think they can't win from 14. But then when we started talking about third round reversal, it just made too much sense to me as a high stakes game operator to let people have a more balanced draft. And then, of course, KDS made it better because then you could choose. So, do you like KDS? Do you like 3R? Now, even with 12 teamer, we use it as well. And I think it still serves the purpose of 12 teamers.
I mean, I love it, Greg. You know I love it. That's why I'm here. I truthfully don't know why anybody would play anywhere else. I honestly, I believe, I mean that because, I'm going to give you a perfect example. The other night, I have an online championship that's on Saturday. My KDS set. I was 12th, last out of the hat.
Yep.
Got my second preference.
Yep.
I got
That's
my second choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Who does not like having an opportunity to have a say in where they're picking? And the 3RR it balances it all. It puts it all into perspective. I mean, I think it's the greatest thing ever. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm going to be here forever. I love it. It's fantastic. Like I said, I don't know why anybody wouldn't use this. There's people in the industry that poo-poo it, and they get in there like, oh, it's ridiculous because I don't get it. No, come on. That's the way it goes. And it's perfect. It literally is.
Yeah, no, I mean, why shouldn't I let you decide where you want it? Now, it's still randomly picked, and like you say, you might get 12th out of the hat, but you're not going to get your 12th preference probably, right? So I don't know why people, and when we first started it, people were like, well, it's too complicated. People won't understand it. And then you got to do it manually. Well, we've got it automated, and now it's just like that, so it's no big deal. We put it on your team page or your league homepage so you see where you were randomly picked. It's all as transparent as could be. I still don't understand why people wouldn't want that as a player. If I'm paying $1,750 or whatever, I don't know. But I'm glad to hear that you like it, and I'm glad that our other guys like it as well. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the Classic. Like you said, you won 2004, then you were second an awful lot. You actually didn't win another Classic League title until 2013. Then you won in 2014, 2019. So you have 4 Classic League titles so far. Again, it's a tough format. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to grow this format, but we've had 18 different overall champions in 18 years. What does that tell you about how hard that 14 team is, and even how hard it is to win a league title, for crying out loud? You've won 4 in 18 years, so you're beating the odds of one every 14 years, but it ain't easy, is it?
Not at all. And you have good players in it too. It's not like just, I mean, there's some, every league's got a couple players here and there that are, whatever. Maybe you call them a little softer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But not too many in those leagues. And the 14 is just so hard because if you're at one of the ends, you gotta get those picks right, because if you don't, it's a long way back. And you can just watch all your guys just cross them off your list as they go down the line. So it's an extremely difficult league. It's very challenging, but it's so much. It is such a great reward when you win one of those. And I love what you guys are doing this year with it, with the 2000, and you're putting all the money obviously into the league, and it's an opportunity to win a nice chunk of change for for a league.
No, absolutely. I mean, 16,000 to win your league title. I think our best players would want that, right? I mean, that's what you really control. And sure, you want to win the overall, but when we started getting down to 50,000, I was like, well, that's just not enough to get people to dive in. It's not a big enough carrot in today's marketplace. So hopefully people like the $16,000 league prize. Okay, let's talk about the overall in the Classic. So I may not have all of this right, but you finished 3rd overall in the Classic in 2014, 7th overall in 2014. You had 2 teams in the top 16 in 2020. Again, you've been close to that son of a bitch, but you just can't get it. again, 18 different overall champions in 18 years. So maybe this is your year. What are you going for it this year? Is this the year to get it?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That year I finished third. I'll never forget that game because I actually finished second in another contest that year because Tony Gonzalez got me there. The kicker was that game, Duke Viveros was behind me, and it was the last play of the game. The Falcons were down. They were playing the Niners. They're down by like 8 points, and they're on like the 50-yard line. Just kneel, do something. Matt Ryan throws a little 2-yard out to Tony Gonzalez for some reason, and I lost. I lost second place. I went from second to third and lost. Went from 12,500 to 5,000.
Yeah.
And Duke's texted me, and I was like, "You son of a bitch." But we laugh about that all the time. But I couldn't be too upset because I got second in another pretty big contest.
Yeah.
So it was a good year. But yeah, it's tough. Again, you got to have the right guys at the right time, and
Right.
you know, nobody. And I mean, I looked at the schedule. I always look at the schedule. I don't really put a whole lot of credence into it. But this year's hard. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm like, there's nobody that's like a slam dunk, like, oh, this guy's schedule's so good, and he's going to dominate. Yeah. It's tough to look at this year. And, you know, nobody could have predicted Burrow and Chase left. There's no way.
Right.
So
right.
You just got to have the right combination. You really do.
I know. So what is that combination this year? Again, 2 years in a row now it's been guys. I don't want you to spill all your beans or whatever, but you say you don't stack really. I mean, could it be Herbert Allen or something like that? I mean, it seems like the AFC West would be the combination that you would want to have this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a sneaky one, and you can get the quarterback very late is Carr and Devontae Adams. You know, maybe those two just get on the right page together and they tear it up for 3 weeks. You know, a lot of people were into the Russell Wilson stacks with Sutton. That's very possible for sure. You know, of course you got Mahomes and pick your poison. Some people do Mahomes, Kelsey. You go Mahomes, you know, Schuster, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody truly knows what the cheat code is for this year.
Right. Nobody knows the week 17 combo, but you're absolutely right. Like a Carr Adams. I mean, Carr could be even your RB or quarterback 2, and then he gets hot, and then at the end of the year you put him in there, and those two guys just hook up for a big game. So absolutely, I agree. All right, let's talk about the prime time because a little pain here as well. You finished as high as 4th overall in 2012. Couldn't quite get that one as well, but you're damn close, and you want it this year. Talk about the 12-team format. Now, that's gotten to be more popular, obviously, in the Big Carrot. In all the contests, everybody's putting up some big grand prizes.
Yeah.
How much you like that 12-team format, and what would it mean to you to win that overall title?
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, that's my goal this year. You know, it's a lofty goal. You got to win your leagues first to get in there and everything, or, you know, finish in the top 3 anyhow. But you know, that's the goal. Is I want to go into the prime time, and I'm going for it this year. I want to see what I can do. And the thing I like about the prime time when you're doing the online championships, it's almost like I actually talked to Nelson Sousa about this today. It's like a reset button, you know, because, you know, you have all the guys that are rising right now in the onlines, like the Pachecos and the Romeo Dubs and, you know, Pickens, they're all flying up the boards. And, you know, 3 weeks ago, you're getting them 7-8 rounds later. Well, now in the prime time, that first draft, you're going to see that's going to be the ADP. I mean, that's going to set the bar, and then people will fluctuate, of course. But that's what I love about the prime time too. And, you know, it's just, plus, I mean, your odds of winning it are better, of course, because it's a little higher prize and everything. But yeah, love the 12-team format. Love the online championship, the prime time. They're so addictive. I said before, if I didn't have a job, I would be doing over 100 of these. There's no question.
It's called retirement. It's called retirement.
It's coming soon, and I know this is what I'm going to be doing. It's not even a question about it. So love it. Oh.
Some people be professional poker players. They're going to be professional fantasy football player.
Yeah.
I love it for sure. Yeah. You know what? That's why I kind of like not doing the prime time so early. Like you said, it's kind of a reset, right? I mean, so we do it on the 20th, and then what do we have? 3.5 weeks of just prime time. And I agree with you. Now we're starting over on the prime time. Here we go. And sure, there'll be some things change, but it won't be as much as, like you say, Romeo Dubs going hardly at all to the 14th round, to the 12th round, and now even sooner and stuff like that. So very interesting. All right, so let's talk about this. In 2014, we decided to induct our first members into the NFFC Hall of Fame. We had completed 10 years of competition at that time. To me, it was obvious there were 7 guys, and I had said to Tom, I think these guys need to get in. And you were selected with that inaugural class in 2014. Like I asked Chris, do you remember when I called you? Do you remember getting that call that you were a member of the NFFC Hall of Fame?
I did, and I remember, I believe, if I'm correct, you put something out on the boards, like
Right.
for people to nominate people or something to that
Right.
effect. I don't remember how they did it exactly. And I knew what I've accomplished up to that point, but I wasn't banking on anything. And if I didn't get it, I wasn't going to be all upset or anything. But yeah, I remember a lot, and I was very, it's like I said, I was very honored to get in because, like Chris mentioned and other people mentioned on the show, it's like it's one of those things that you strive. It's a great honor to be in that. I mean, to be selected out of all these people, because there's so many great players in this industry, and to be selected for that, it was a great honor. And I just remember Glenn Schroeder calling me, I believe it was the next day or a couple days after, and he was like, he said, "You're a no-brainer." And for Glenn to say that about that was great too. I mean, you hear when you hear from some people in the industry and they say, "Hey, you deserve it," and everything, it just kind of makes it even all the more special.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's kind of corny when you tell people, "Yeah, I'm in the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame" or whatever. But again, there's a lot of great players out there. It's an accomplishment, isn't it? It could be corny, but I think it's a hell of an accomplishment for you guys.
It is. And, when I go to my local draft, of course, they'll be, "Oh, the Hall of Famers here. Let's everybody stop and bow." And, I catch shit and all that. And I still, it's like last couple of years, I can't, I got close last year, but I can't win the damn local league. I mean, it's one of those things that just doesn't connect right. I take a little more gambles in that one and try some different things I probably wouldn't do, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. So this guy, I'm going to give a shout out. His name's Chris Leach. He's won it 2 years in a row now. And I'm like, so I got to beat this guy this year. So anyhow, So, but yeah, it really is a great honor. You can call it corny, whatever you want. And again, like Chris said last week, I think the fact that you guys have not flooded it with tons of people and you're very choosy about who gets in. And, I know Chris Eibel was the last one. He's, outstanding. He definitely deserved that. And all the other people that are in. So it's definitely a great honor.
I think you got to get Chris Leach to come join the NFFC if he's kicking ass in your local league there. We need to get him in here. Give me his phone number or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we'll work on that.
All right. So that first class was Chad Schroeder, Chris Ficarro, Michael Edelman, Derek Anderson, Lumpy, Jules McLean, Tom Yates, and you. Like I said last week with Chris, those names still hold up today. I mean, and then you got Mike Santos and Kurt Kikas, obviously, and Chris Eibel. I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, when you think of that list, what does it say to you right now?
Oh, like I said, to be listed amongst those players, it's just, you're like, wow, you've obviously accomplished something, because they're all excellent at what they do. They're fantastic. They bring it every year. And it's just an honor to be, with them.
Yeah, definitely. All right. To close out, let's look at your resume a little bit here. I said you're fourth on the NFFC career earnings list, $533,592 in winnings. You also won a Diamond League with Frank Mamola in 2019. You won a Super League title in 2010 by yourself. You've won 4 Billy Waz best ball leagues. You started this league and then you dominated that son of a bitch. You've won 2 NFFC 12-team kickoff gridiron leagues. You weren't in that right away. You came out to Las Vegas and you won that like 2 years in a row or 2 out of 3 years. You even won our New York Throwback League title in 2016. If you remember that format.
Love that league. Bring that
no
back.
Notes. No
Bring
notes.
It back. I love that. Everybody loved that league. Everybody wants that. But we got to figure out a way to squeeze that in somewhere.
I know. That's the problem. Everybody left on Saturday night. We couldn't squeeze it in between the auctions, and we got the Super on Sirius XM. You get 12 guys together and we'll host that baby. I mean, think about it. What is it? 12 teams, 20 rounds, no notes, right?
Yeah, it's tough, and people think, oh, yeah, and we, in fairness, a lot of us do so many drafts in the online. Right. You can visualize the draft board in your head, but there's always somebody you're missing, always. Yeah. And somebody says their name and you're like, damn, I knew they're missing somebody. But it's so much fun. It is so much fun. I love that league. We absolutely loved it.
We got to find a time slot, maybe in Vegas when everybody's drinking, just to see how they do while they're drinking, and then see what their memories look like there, is for sure. So, hey, again, this is our 19th year. What has changed in high stakes? I talked with Chris about this last week. I mean, obviously there's more national contests. There's more offerings. I mean, think back to the first 3 years. We only had the Classic. You did one league with us each year. Now you do more than one league in a day, right? Think about that. Like, how much has changed in the industry, and for the better and for the good, maybe?
I mean, that is the biggest change in my opinion, is the offerings. There's so many more offerings now than there were before. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there was something special. I loved the fact that Classic, when you had New York drafting at 1 and Chicago was at noon and Vegas was at 10 a.m. Everybody had the exact same chance at one spot. That was kind of cool. But I understand that, you know, you had to evolve. And you know, the fact is I love playing in a lot of leagues, so it works for me. So that's, you know, the best thing is there's offerings, you know, so if you can't make it to Vegas, you can't make it to New York, you can do it an online championship the week before or whatever during the week. It's, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me that comes to mind. I mean, and you know, honestly, the type of player has changed as well. That, you know, people are getting sharper. I mean, there's just more information out there. It's bottom line. I mean, it's everywhere. Twitter and anything else. The information's out there, and everybody has it. And you got to be able to try to sift through it. And I think that's what separates some players from others, is they can sift through some of the information. And
what people forget is we used to give magazines at the draft. We would have our magazine and other ones that we would do as well, Rotowire and Fantasy Guru and players, fantasy players, and we would give it to you, and some guys would open them up, and that's how they would draft off the magazines as they walked in there. You know, they knew what in their mind maybe, but they used our magazine right there. And like you say, that doesn't happen anymore. So it's been much, much better though. All right. So is this the year for the modified running back strategy? Does it seem like I'm watching Nelson a lot too, where he'll get one stud and then really hammer the wide receivers? Are you doing that at all, or what's the strategy this year?
I'm mixing it up a lot, truthfully, but I mean, I like the modified strategy. I mean, I like the 1-and-1 start, running back and a receiver for your first 2 picks, and then going from there. And it generally, the 3rd round is kind of a receiver round, as is the 4th and even the 5th. So it definitely leads to that. I mean, I've done some things. I did one team. I started 2 receivers, Mark Andrews. I started Diggs, Adams, Andrews. I got Cortland Sutton to fall all the way to 4-11, and then I got Mooney. So, and then the beauty is I got
no RB strategy. It was
right. And I ended up getting both Bills running backs, and I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kareem Hunt, and I'm just going to throw it together. But I've done that before too. But yeah, I think getting a running back in your first 2 is a smart move. You can definitely do 2 running backs for sure, especially at the back. It's really a nice strategy at the back when you get a Swift and a Mixon, or Barkley and Aaron Jones or whatever. You can put that combo together, and knowing that the 3, 4, and 5 rounds are definitely receiver rounds. So it does work. It all depends on where you're drafting, truthfully, how your team's going to shake out for me anyway.
Yeah. No, Tom and I were talking about that on a drive to Milwaukee yesterday. I mean, the back end, you can really hammer 2 running backs if you want to, and then you got the first pick of the 3rd round, and you got the top wide receiver there. Right. And there are still good wide receivers at 4 and 5. So interest. I was looking at your player shares today, and I see a diversified portfolio. I mean, nothing stands out. When I looked at Chris Vaccaro, I was telling him last week, I see Barkley and I see a bunch of Giants, Tony I saw, and Daniel Jones and such, but you're really diversified. Do you do that on purpose or not?
I think it's just a matter of switching my draft spots enough so I'm not getting the same players. I think it's more of that than anything else. There are definitely guys I like to target. So it's the way it works. I want to have a piece of a certain amount of people. There's a couple guys I don't have yet. I don't have any AJ Brown as of yet. And I think it's time to start getting a little bit of him, but I don't know how much. I'm not crazy about him. There's something wrong. There's something about it I don't like. So kind of, but eventually I got to get a share or 2 just because I don't want to miss out. But yeah, I normally do try to keep it semi-balanced. I know there's a lot of guys that go like 50, 60% on players, and that's great if they're good. And if they're not and they get hurt, it can sink a lot of teams real fast. So,
right. Absolutely. Yeah. So talk about quarterbacks and how you handle quarterbacks. NFFC is 6 points per passing touchdown. I think we're the only high stakes league that does that. It makes the quarterback somewhat more valuable, but all of the quarterbacks are more valuable. So people can wait on quarterbacks. I mean, Joe Burrow was QB 13 last year. He won you a national title. How do you handle quarterbacks in the NFFC?
I mean, I think quarterbacks are very deep this year as well. I think it's about 14 deep, and I think you can win with any one of those guys if things will work out right. My basic strategy on quarterback is, if nothing else on the board looks good to me and there's a good quarterback there, that's when I'll take my quarterback. That's pretty much how I play it. You know, there's drafts where like Mahomes, I get him in like the late 5th, and there's nothing. You know, the receivers all look the same. I'm like, why not? I'm taking you get Patrick Mahomes in the 5th. You got 4 good players in front of him, and now you got arguably could be number 1 quarterback this year. I mean, it's possible. It's not out of the range of outcomes. So that's my strategy is pretty much, I look at whoever's on the board, and then if there's a quarterback there and there's nothing else that's really jumping out at me, that's where I'll generally jump on a quarterback.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, Josh Allen's the first quarterback going off. I think his ADP is like 33 or 34. But you see him in the 4th round, and then you see Mahomes in the 5th round sometimes. We have not seen that with the top 2 quarterbacks going that late. I don't think that I can remember in the NFFC. There was always someone who seemed to go 2nd round or end of or 3rd round or so. But it's an interesting year for the quarterbacks.
I remember in the classics, and I was one of these guys. I know Chris Vaccaro was as well. I remember the year. I'm sure you remember this too. It was Brady, Rodgers, and Drew Brees, and they were 1st round picks. Yeah, people were taking all 3 in the 1st round, and I me included, and it was worth it because they were so much better. See, the problem is now, and not the problem. It's the fact is Josh Allen. Everybody has him here. But the gap between him and 14, it's closing. It's like they're all tightening up. So people are like, yeah, I'll just wait. I'll just get this guy later, and I'll load up on my running backs and receivers and tight ends and stuff. So I get it. I understand why people do it. And, there's always a quarterback that surprises. Trey Lance is the big name this year. He's the guy that everybody, thinks is going to pop off, and he very well could. He's very talented. So,
Yeah. No, Dante Culpepper, like you said earlier, he went in the 1st round in that first year. I remember him going like at 12 on every draft. He was at like 12, And, so quarterbacks were going in the 1st round in the NFFC right away with the 6 points per passing touchdown. Let me ask you about ADPs. We make them public for everybody to use. I used to hold them back, but I think it's our best marketing tool right now. Do you use the ADPs, or are you in so many drafts that you kind of know where guys are going?
A little bit of both. I definitely monitor them. I kind of see who's going. I like to, pretty much every morning, my first thing I'll do is I'll go to your draft. I love the draft board. You can pull up the ADP draft board of the night before. You just, narrow the dates down and zone in on that. And I kind of see where players were going the night before. And I just look for anything that's egregious, moving one way or the other to see if somebody's falling or moving up, that kind of thing. And I can adjust from there. But, I've done so many of these. I know who I like in each round and where in each round and who's there and who to target and that kind of thing. I definitely look at ADP. There's no question.
Good. I mean, like you say, you see last night's drafts, maybe look where Dubs is going or somebody like that, that is standing out right now. It's interesting to see how fast they move up. So absolutely, that's a great tool. Okay, KDS, what are you doing for KDS this year? Again, I don't want to pry too much right now. You're probably all over the board to try and see everything, but come prime time, is there a sweet spot for you this year?
I mean, I like, I think the back's a lot more flexible. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go from the back, and it doesn't pin you in. I think at the front, you're kind of committed to a certain path more so in the front. The middle, I haven't drafted a ton from. I did draft from 5 a couple times, and I actually liked it. It worked out pretty well for me. Because it's nice because you can pick things off on both sides as they come down. Yeah. But probably the back is my favorite area right now. But I don't mind the 3-hole and that stuff as well. Building the team, starting out with one of the 2 running backs or Justin Jefferson. I think that's a solid start. And then you just piece it from there. And you're hoping for somebody to fall in the 2nd round that normally doesn't and get a gift. And then the 3rd round and 4th as well. But again, I think the draft seems to flow a little better from the back, in my opinion, but everybody's different. I mean, last year I won from 8. I think I was 8 last year, and what's funny is I when I do my drafts, I mark down the Fantasy Pros analysis of the drafts, and I put down like the where they have me, and that team that won it all last year was picked to finish 7th in the league. So
gave you a C+, huh? Gave you a C+.
It was probably like a C, but I don't know. I don't put that down. But it was 7th place, and I'm like, every time I get a 7th, I'm like, well, this might be the team this year. I don't pay attention to this a whole lot, but anyway, you can win from anywhere. That's the bottom line. It doesn't. You can win from anywhere. Don't let anybody tell you differently. There's certain spots everybody prefers. That's what's beauty of KDS. Yeah. But you can win from anywhere. You really can. You got to pick the right players. That's what it comes down to. And winning overall, you just got to get hot. I mean, if you looked at that draft, when I drafted it, it was nothing special. I mean, it was a good team, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this team's so good.
Yeah.
It was good, but it wasn't like, wow, this team's going to dominate. So,
yeah. Well, you scored 252 in week 17. You got a good chance of winning. So that was a good one for sure. Hey, let's talk a little bit about New York before we go. So we always are at the Stewart Hotel, and for baseball too, and they have been great. They're affordable for us, and they were redoing their convention center after we were there in April. We were already going to sign the contract right there. She was so excited to have us back, and then it's May, and Tom can't get a hold of her. And she says, well, they're redoing the entire convention center. We're not going to be available for the summer. So we start looking around, and I'm telling you, it's not easy to host in New York. There's a reason why we're the only high stakes company that hosts live events in New York City. It's break even at best. But so we couldn't find anything. And then, we found something in Brooklyn and it wasn't ideal. And you said, hell, we just give us pizza. We'll draft anywhere. And I had toured Dave & Buster's at one point. In fact, with Matthew Berry, he had asked me if I wanted to move something there during a trade conference. We went there, took a look at it, and I remember this really nice room that they had there. So we're going to have it at Dave & Buster's, and that's exactly what we're doing. As much beer as you guys want, as much pizza and everything else, and we're just going to draft. But it's just the camaraderie of it, right? We're going to have a draft at 10, and then at 1, and at 4, and 7. It just goes like that. And the Super is going to be on Sirius XM. They're going to broadcast it live. Hey, who cares where it's at, right?
Yeah, I would draft in a back alley, truthfully. I don't care. I really would. I mean, I have no issues with it. I think it's great. I thought it would be good to keep it in Times Square or keep it in that area, down to Manhattan. I think it's great. New York Super that's the draft. It's the one. The diamonds are always bigger and stuff like that, of course. And to win an overall is great. But that Super League, you just focus on one league each year. That's the one, because that league is no joke. There is nothing easy about that league at all. And, I don't know of course, Frank Momola can't make it this year because his son's getting married. So he's like, well, I'm going to find a replacement. He brings Chris Eibel in. And I'm like, geez, Frank. I'm like, find your brother to come in or somebody easy. This league already has it is the most brutal. I thought about this year. It's like, we're at Dave & Buster's. You ought to just throw us all in the ball pit. Give us a couple boxing gloves, and whoever comes out, they win. Just forget the draft, because that's really what it's like. I call my teams knuckle up. That's what I call it, New York Super knuckle up, because it's a war, it's a fight. Everybody there is sharp. They know what they're doing, and it's such a tough league. And I'll tell you, when you do well in that one, you really know you're doing something too. So Frank's got a ringer, but
Lowy, he's no good, but he brings his son in, and he keeps winning that title because Joe was carrying that team, right? Joe is carrying that team. Just say it right here.
Yeah, Joe is the brains of that operation. He told me that secretly. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to hear on tape. Take that, Lowy. Take that. Hey, so you're coming out to Vegas, right? And we're going to have some fun in Vegas as well. Now, you always have to go back, right? You can't stay on Sunday to watch the games at the Westgate with us because you work. Are you staying this year or not?
I'm not staying this year. So there's a couple reasons. Okay, my biggest thing is, so Richmond, when I fly to Richmond, there's no direct flight. So I got to stop somewhere. So this year, I'm coming out Tuesday night. I'm leaving Tuesday right after school. So I'll be there Wednesday, because my plan is just to enjoy Wednesday and relax and have some pool time, stuff I normally don't get to do, because it's very stressful on Wednesdays. If I fly out Wednesday, sometimes something gets delayed. And then I got the Super auction Thursday morning. So I'm going to come out earlier, and that's why I won't be staying. My wife's birthday is September 12th, which is always right around somewhere. And honestly, she's a saint, because she's always been like, don't worry about it. It's just my birthday. We'll celebrate later. And but her birthday's that Monday, and I'm going to be back. But I always like to get home for the games too. I did stay 1 year. There was 1 year I stayed, but that was a long time ago. But I can tell you this: when I'm retired, I would definitely stay. There's no question about it.
Oh, I'm telling you, the Westgate is so much fun. 9 big screen TVs. There's 1,400 people in that room, and every play, someone's either betting, it's affecting betting, or their fantasy team. So it's ooh, on every play of every it's electric. It's fantastic, but the best. So yeah, if you're able to stay out there, for sure. But all right, Billy, it's been a great talking to you. 19 years is hard to believe how fast it's gone by and all, but what a bunch of memories and what a bunch of great friends we've all made through this. And, like I said to Chris, I think Tom and I are having as much fun right now as we've ever had hosting these, because the drafts are so smooth. It's electronic boards. You don't have to worry about stickers and crap like that anymore. And they go back they go by so fast. I mean, an hour and a half, we're done. It's like, guys, take your time, but everybody knows who they want and such. So it's been a pleasure. So great knowing you, Billy. So Billy is going to stick around. We're going to do a live stream at 10 o'clock with Nelson Sousa, Tom Kesenick, and myself. You remember when Frank and Howard and Andy Don were in the booth? We got four of us at 10 o'clock. We're going to do the Rotowire Online Championship live stream. So come back and join us right here. I'm going to say goodbye to Billy right now, but we're going to be back at the top of the hour. Billy, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure. You're a good friend of the NFFC,
Yes.
good friend of mine and Tom's as well. So thank you very much and good luck this year. All right.
Thanks to you, Greg, and you guys keep up the great work. You guys, again, you're running the best contest in the business in my book.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you at the top of the hour.